let's talk about the channel box and the attribute editor. So these can both be accessed over here to the right, which says, just been flipped around. It says channel box and layer editor, and it says attribute editor. You can click on them here, or you can hit the hotkey, which is Control A. So Control A will just toggle between these two. So the channel box is a very easy way of manipulating the general object here. So now we could select the model, we could select the move tool, and now we can just move this left to right. And now you see, if you look over here when I'm doing this, you can see that this actually changes the values of the object. Move it in here as well on Z, and we can move it up on Y as well. The way my works is that Y is up, Z is in, and X is left to right. This is different from other software such as Blender and Max, where Z is up. So you can also input the values here as well. If you want to, for instance, zero all these out, you can select them all, just drag over and hit 0 on the keyboard. And then you hit enter. You can do the same thing here, just hit 0 and just hit enter. So very useful stuff. You can then click on a value and set something like 2, or you can set to 0, 1, whatever it might be. And you can just get very precise measurements here, or very precise inputs into what you want. So you could, of course, go in here and rotate this around as well. This works with all the different channels. You start to rotate this around like so. And you can just undo. This works with undo as well. So this is exactly the same as using these tools over here. It's just a more precise way of doing it. Like if you want to scale this up by like 1.642, it's really hard to do it. But if you go over here, you can just numerically input what it is. Then we have the attribute editor. The attribute editor is slightly more scary. It's not very scary, but it's slightly more scary. So what we have here is a collection of all the nodes. All the nodes connected to the model. So here you can see when we click raw poly, every single model has a transform. It's kind of like you have a shape of the model, which dictates what the shape is actually like. And then you have a transform, which dictates where in the space it actually is. So first we have the transform, which is here. This is all the way to the left. Then we have a poly shape, which is here. The poly shape is not directly useful right away, but it becomes very important later on, particularly when rendering. This has a lot to do with how the shape will look like when it's actually being rendered. So we'll go really in depth into it then. But for now, just know that a model is comprised of a transform node, which dictates where in space it is. And then it's then a shape node, which dictates what it actually looks like. And then we have a fog node, which is just a material assigned to it. And this is where you can just change what colors are on it. This is where you can change all sorts of stuff, like we can change all the specularity, all this kind of stuff, but we'll get way more into that later on. And here's a model which is slightly more complex. This is slightly more complex because it has some operations done to it. Well, it has one operation done to it. This has been smooth. So we have just gone in here, and you can see here that this is low res and this is a lot higher res. That's because it has a smooth shape applied to it. So we can go in here and we can just set the smooth down. We can set it up. And this is what you're visualizing in the attribute editor. When you click on the model, you are now just going in here and you're just going to the smooth, and you can now just change this up and down like so. You can also rename the nodes as well if you want to. That's a bit overkill for me, but for certain things, we're definitely going to be doing that. For general modeling, we're not going to do that. You can also see here that I'm going very quickly between the different nodes just by the scroll wheel here. Now this here seems maybe a bit technical since we're very early on in the series, but trust me when I say that knowing this will help you so much later on with everything you're doing. It's going to help you from troubleshooting to assigning shaders to just understanding how everything in Maya works. So whenever you're clicking on something like this and there are just a million tabs here, they're just nodes. They're just nodes attached to the model. The reason I'm so careful about explaining this early on is this took me years to understand in Maya. I've been using Maya for like 10 years now, and for the first like 2, I didn't truly understand what was going on here. So whenever I was trying to troubleshoot something, I was really having a hard time because I was just looking at this as a long list of stuff being applied to the model, which had like a kind of relationship to the model. But no, it's directly attached to the model as nodes. So of course we'll go way more into this later on in the series. Some of this is just purely theoretical, which you don't have to know, and other things here is incredibly useful and it will really speed up your work down the line. So with that said, now you should have an okay understanding of what nodes actually do and what the channel box and attribute editor is. Like, don't worry if you still don't truly get it. Like, we'll cover this extensively later on. And whenever we do a modeling operation, we're going to be talking about like we're assigning like a extrusion node to the model, for instance. So we'll make sure you understand this before really moving on.